We have two different properties. We have the relinquished property, which is a property being sold. That is the original property in the transaction, and the replacement property. Replacement property is the one that is being acquired with the proceeds from the sale of the relinquished property. Now, the term like-kind property will always come up in these transactions because it is a requirement that the property being, the replacement property be of like kind as the relinquished property. That essentially means that you cannot exchange, let's say you're selling a business and you're selling the assets of a business, and with the profits from that asset purchase, you are now going to purchase a real property. That would not qualify under a 1031 because the property that we're dealing with is not like kind. You have to exchange real property for real property, and it all has to fall within the umbrella of investment property. So your limitation is as follows. If you have an apartment building and you want to purchase a single family or a commercial building, it can qualify as a 1031. However, if you have a primary residential property that you're now selling and you want to purchase an investment property, the transaction would not qualify because the relinquished property is a primary residential. It all has to be for investment purposes, and therefore, in order to qualify, the property that's being sold must also be an investment property.
I have a question for you, excuse me.
Yes, go for it.
If I have a client that owned a used car dealership and they wanted to turn around and purchase a sixplex, does that work?
So do they own the real property where the real car dealership rests on? Are they selling the land? Yes, so you're selling one land for the purchase of another land. Now, the restrictions on this and the limitations on this are the name of the owner on the property that's being sold, we'll call it the original property, must be the same individual or entity that will be purchasing the replacement property. Okay, so essentially, if you have more than one owner on the property being sold, in order to qualify for a 1031, the title on the new property being the replacement property, the property being purchased, must be all owners.
Okay.
There's a small exception to this. Typically, we hold title, investors hold title to property under an LLC, an entity, a corporation. If it's a single member LLC that owns and sells the original property, that single member LLC will be considered a pass-through, and it'll pass through to the member. And therefore, although title was initially held in the single company's name, it can be purchased, the proceeds can be used to be purchased another property under the name of that single member. So although the name on titles don't match because it's a single member LLC and it's treated as a disregarded entity, the sole member of that single member LLC can be named on title of the replacement property.
Single member, sole proprietor, same thing?
Single, it depends on how they file their returns, but this particular exception is for single member LLCs. They're disregarded entities, okay? So delayed exchange, right? There's several different types of 1031 exchange programs. The most common type is what's called the delayed exchange. In a delayed exchange, investor relinquishes the original property prior to purchasing the replacement property. Okay, so it's a two-step process. Step one, investor has to market, negotiate, and execute a contract for the sale of his property before initiating the delayed exchange, right? So once the investor is under contract for the sale of his property, now he could move on to step two, and that would be, once you're under contract, you now retain the services of a third-party exchange intermediary to initiate the 1031 exchange. The intermediary's role is to receive the proceeds from the sale of the original property and hold it for the time period required under 1031 procedure, and then use those proceeds to purchase the replacement property. So essentially there's two time windows. You have a 45-day time window and a 180-day time window. Under the 45-day time window, seller has 45 calendar days post-closing to identify up to 3 properties, okay? So it's 45 days from the closing date to identify the properties, okay? Once properties are identified, you have to act swiftly in closing because the investor also has a limitation on how long the closing can take place. Closing must take place no later than 180 days after the sale of the original property. Okay. Now, there's limitations on what can be used, on how the proceeds can be used, and the type of property to be purchased, right? One, as I explained, it's for investment property only. You cannot purchase, you cannot sell a commercial property to then use the proceeds for a residential primary residential property, and try to qualify it as a 1031. It's not going to work. Okay. 1. 2, value of replacement property must be equal or greater than the property being sold. If you are selling your property for $2 million, then the property that's being purchased must be $2 million or greater in order to qualify 100% of, in order to avoid paying taxes on 100% of the capital gains. Now, similarly, if the property being sold is encumbered by a mortgage of, let's say, $500,000, then it has to mirror the transaction. The property is $2 million and it has a mortgage of $500,000. Now the property being purchased has to be at least $2 million and has to have a mortgage of at least $500,000. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yeah. So my next question on this one is, what if the property you're purchasing is using it as a primary residence, but you have it in the same name as the original corporation?
Well, remember, if it's a property held in the title of, if it's titled in the name of an entity, it does not qualify for primary residence. So it technically, under homestead exemption law, an entity does not qualify for homestead protection, and therefore it should have never applied for homestead exemption, and therefore the primary residence rule wouldn't apply because entities don't qualify for homestead exemption for purpose of primary residence. So it would be treated as a commercial property. We just have other issues that would need to be addressed, and that is whether they apply for the homestead and any violations of the homestead rules that are now being violated. Okay. Also, something to note, although in order to avoid paying taxes on 100% of the capital gains, it requires that the value of the replacement be greater or equal. You can still purchase another property that's not greater or equal. You're just going to pay capital gains on the balance that remains. So if you sell a property for $2 million and your replacement property is $1 million, rather than being taxed on the $2 million transaction, you'll be taxed on the balance that remains of $1 million. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you sell a property, can you buy instead of 2 different properties? But
yes.
Okay. But
yes, absolutely. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
But the amount needs to be equal or greater between both of them, right?
Correct. That is correct. So you could spread it out and purchase 3 different properties. So let's say you're selling a shopping center for $2 million, and you're done with the shopping center business. You rather have like 3 different duplexes, and you want to spend the $2 million or you with the equal or greater value on the purchase of 3 different duplexes. It qualifies. Obviously, so long as the other requirements being, we already know the value is going to be equal or greater, and so long as it's the same taxpayer, right? So seller is going to be on the seller on title, and on the tax return for the sale of the property is going to be the same individual that's going to be, or entity, named on title and tax return for the purchase of the 3 other properties. Okay, so long as those requirements are complied with, then you're good to go, and you could also spread it out.
Hey George, can I interrupt for a quick second? Bridgette, good stuff. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, this is something that we want to try to figure out as to how an agent can utilize this type of information and knowledge, right? Obviously, a lot of agents are probably saying to themselves, "Well, how and why would this? How can I utilize this?" Well, if you've got somebody who's looking to invest or somebody who's up and coming and investing, the actual benefits of saving money on having to pay capital gains taxes is huge. Wouldn't you agree, Bridgette?
Absolutely.
So
This is a
if you're an agent, because I think that we need to pose that question. If you're an agent on this call today, how is it that you would personally go about marketing this, or maybe having it become one of your niches to certain investors out there who may not be educated on this particular matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Capital gains and avoiding capital gains is huge for any investor. As you know, anytime that they sell a property, that profit is going to be subject to high taxes. And so being able to offer them a tool in order to avoid as much tax liability as possible is always going to make you shine in the eye of your client. They want to know you're looking out for their best interest and providing them with different tools and options that are to their benefit.
Yeah, I think that somebody can actually become somewhat make it a sort of a niche, especially for the investor groups that are out there, whether it's high-end investments or not, right? Like fix and flips. I would assume that would fall into the same categories. Yes.
So long as it falls within the window. Now, it's a fix and flips is a gray area because you're purchasing it with the intent of rebuilding it, and it's whether or not it falls within an investment. So it's a little bit of a gray area. But if it qualifies under the elements and the requirements, and it's able to be sold and purchased within the 45, 180-day window, then it should qualify.
Bridgette, I got a question, Bridgette, because I recently did a 1031 exchange with one of my clients, and it was kind of an issue. So you said from closing you have 45 days to identify 3 properties. I think also there's another one where you can identify 10 properties or something like that. But let's say
Go ahead.
Just to give you the example of what happened with my people. My people were out-of-state investors. They're from New York. They sold a condo over there. They're reinvesting over here. Now, we went under contract with 2 properties with the amount which they needed to invest in. Now, God forbid, because obviously this is Miami and you have to deal with some type of sellers sometimes that screw up transactions. When let's say it comes down to closing on one of the properties and the seller decides to say, you know what, I don't want to close, or something happens on title that pops up that they don't want to close, they don't want to fix it and close, can you go ahead, and is there some way to go ahead and find another property, or is the buyer basically stuck and have to pay taxes on that property, on that funds that was not used on that second property?
Well, it's a short window, and they have to, if there's a property that is not found or identified within the 45-day period, there may be exceptions and ways around it, but that would be more dependent on the facts of the circumstances. There's different methods of doing 1031 exchanges that would permit for other options. But again, it would depend on the transaction. And I would like to focus today mostly on the delayed exchange. What we can do in terms of discussing the other types of exchanges, we could do a follow-up Zoom session sometime next week, or as George's convenience, to discuss the other methods. There's the reverse, the simultaneous, and there's other options available that perhaps if they didn't qualify for one, they may be able to have qualified for another one. It seems to me that the one that they were attempting to qualify for was the delayed exchange. And so, yes, outside the 45-day window, they would come across the issue and would be taxed on whatever monies were treated, whatever monies they received due to the fact that they weren't able to identify that third property or that whatever number property they were trying to purchase.
Got it.
Does anybody have any other questions for Bridgette?
Yes.
Hold on, Rudy. Rudy, you're muted. Hold on. I had muted you because it was making noise. Unmute yourself, Rudy.
All right. So the process of having an intermediary, Bridgette, you want to touch upon that because that wasn't discussed. So let's just say I find a client that's an investor and he loves the idea to sell and buy and avoid taxes and capital gains, because this happens very, very, very often, and it's very common, and especially in our community. What's my next step, Bridgette? Other than calling you, what would be the next step to get that going?
Okay, so the next step would be once you're under contract, and you could shop around for it beforehand, but so long as once you're under contract, you want to identify the qualified intermediary company that you're going to be utilizing for the transaction. The intermediary company is basically going to stand in the shoes of the seller, and they will be more likely than not, depending on the company, be named on the HUD and they will be in charge of receiving the proceeds, right? So the way that the 1031 exchange works, the reason why there's no tax on the capital gains, one of the reasons is because the proceeds from the sale never reach the seller. Rather, it's being held in the account of the qualified intermediary, and the qualified intermediary holds it in trust until the properties are identified and until the closing takes place within that 180-day window. They're in charge of drafting closing documents, because essentially there's additional documents that buyer and seller would have to sign. One of them being an assignment of contract, assignment of proceeds from the seller to the intermediary company. And then essentially there's a small closing that takes place upon them receiving the funds. That same intermediary company is the same company that will be utilized for the purchase of the replacement property. They will be in charge of dispersing the funds necessary for the purchase to the title settlement agent that's in charge of the purchase transaction.
How much do they charge typically?
It depends. It depends. Sometimes they'll do it $900, between $900 to $1,200. But they only charge it on the sale. They won't charge anything on the buyer side. Other companies will charge a small cost in addition to that on the replacement transaction side. Because remember, there's two transactions here.
Do you personally have a preferred intermediary company that you like to work with, or that we work with rather?
Yes, the one that we've worked with in the past that's been very successful with our closings, and they've also been very quick in handling last-minute 1031 exchanges, is IPX 1031.
Hey, Bridgette, would you do us a favor and send a text message to George and myself with that information so that he can have it, so George can post it on his chat?
Certainly.
Awesome.
It's IPX 1031, Bridgette?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, I got it. I'm gonna put it in the chat, guys.
And obviously, there's other companies as well. This is just the one I've had more dealings with, and it's always been a good, smooth transaction when I deal with IPX.
And I also had a question. Do you have a limit of how much properties you can do a year, and for how long?
So you can purchase more properties than the typical three that we were just discussing, so long as their combined value does not exceed 200% of the sale price of the original property. So if you want to spread it out in 3 properties and it be greater or equal to the sales price, you're good. If you want to spread it out into 10, you're good, so long as the sales price combined does not exceed 200% of the sales price of the original property, which is the relinquished property. Do you guys have any other questions?
No, just to piggyback on what the other gentleman was talking about, the way I would use it to market to one of my clients is I would say, why would you pay the capital gain to the government, and when you could just use that to buy more properties and expand your portfolio?
Absolutely.
That's a good point, Hector. Bridgette, I think what we'll do is, I think we could probably, and depending on your thing, do the follow-up, because this is a lot of good stuff to learn. Even myself, personally, like doing a deal of 1031 exchange, in my 9 years, I never done one. I've always had agents do it, and we have a huge family, so I think that we should continue this chain, like, of finding out the next ones, the deferred ones, etc. So
yeah, so like I said, there's different types, and I'll be more than happy to do a follow-up session and go into more detail as to each transaction type. I thought it was best to start with the delayed exchange, because that is the most common, typically used in the real estate industry, just because of the time frame that it provides.
Bridgette,
the 120-day window.
If you could put your info in the chat, email, cell there, and if you hit the bottom that says chat and type it in there, so they want to get your info.
Okay. Pardon,
and soon she'll be next to us on this table.
So I feel like a dinosaur right now trying to figure this out. All right, I got it. I'm in.
All right, well, so thank you so much, Bridgette. I appreciate your time. Guys, if you guys want to stay on, Adi, I didn't mean to get off. That didn't mean to get off.
I have a question. Because like Chris had mentioned, we did a 1031 together. So as far as the time frame, usually it's from 12 to 18 months that they keep the properties, right? Can it exceed the 18 months, or do they get fined on that?
I don't know. I didn't follow the question. I'll sending in the
Okay,
details.
so
Yeah,
let's say they do the 1031. They purchase here in Florida, and then they have 12 to 18 months to then again repurchase the same what's it called? The same amount of the properties again. Can they exceed the 18 months with
Do you know
holding
the type of? Do you know the type of exchange they were doing?
I don't remember the exact one.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Yes. So like I said, there's different exchanges that have a different set of rules and requirements and limitations.
Yeah.
So if there was a limitation on that, it would be dependent on the type of exchange that was being engaged.
Okay, but for the most part, it can't exceed 18 months.
Again, it depends on the exchange. I can't provide a solid answer on that without having more information.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you, Bridget.
My pleasure, guys.
I appreciate it. What I wanted to do next, guys, we're gonna do a mindset thing, but one of the cool things we could do, and you know, Bridget's there. I don't know if Vanessa's here or not, but I had, you know, even myself. Roy said, "Thank you, Bridget."
I saw that. You're welcome, Owen. My pleasure.
Hey, one of the things that I think did we talk about it in the sales meeting? We talked about it in the sales meeting. Let me bring on Javi. Javi, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hold on, man. I don't see your face. You don't have the video on?
You don't see San Francisco in the background?
Oh my God, bro. Look at this. Hotelita, bro. Hey, Javi, I know you explained it the last time, but there's a lot of people that weren't here.
Okay.
First off, closings happening, financing happening. Give us the status on what's going on now.
So guys, we're fully, yep. So George, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to everybody. Bridget, Rudy, that was really informative. Thank you guys as well. I've actually always wanted info on the 1031, so that was amazing. So start off by that. But yeah, guys, so we are definitely still taking applications. We're actually doing the same thing we're doing right now. All our applications are being done through Zoom. So we are currently taking full applications. We're doing Zoom meetings with the staff every morning to make sure that we're on the same page and we're all taking the right steps to still get transactions done. We've got, honestly, guys, we've got probably more volume coming in than ever now. So this whole thing about people saying the market is slowing down, that's definitely not the case. We see a lot of people now reaching out on their spare time. So like I've said, and I said in Instagram, take advantage now. You got a lot of people at home, and what you don't do now will affect you in the next month, 2 or 3 months. So we're fully functional here supporting you. We're doing pre-approvals. We're taking loan applications. We'll talk, I want to talk a little bit about appraisers as well. Appraisers are still doing appraisals, team. They're going out with gloves and masks, and they're appraising these properties and measuring these properties. So we're really not held up in any step of the process. Everything is still being worked, I'd say, just as efficiently as if we were all pre-corona.
And Javi, all right, and that's awesome. And something, one of the things you guys got to understand, that closings are happening, you know, every single day. But remember, the reason why I tell you guys it's so important right now to network your butt off, social media, reach out, email, because it's not like we're going to feel it. We're going to still close next week, aside from the fact that they don't buy an insurance or not. Where you're going to feel this, let's just say 60 days from today is when we're going to have weeks of no closings, because the new deals that you put under contract are not going to be there, because they could be there, but not going to be as good as it was 60 days ago when people were working their butts off. That's why we've had, honestly, one of the craziest 2 weeks of closings. Guzman has been processing commissions like crazy, and a lot of leases and everything, because 30 to 60, sometimes even 90 days ago, we were busting our butts to get this what it is now. But know that if there's a week, 2 weeks right now, so far we're going on. If it goes 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, that means that from those, whatever day that is, add 30 to 60, and it's going to be a slow week. So if you bust your butt now, you want to hit the gate running. So that's a very important thing. Javi, another thing is that you explained on the last time, I think you should explain again, is the 0% interest, which is not 0%. Explain that, how that works a little bit, because a lot of people are still not understanding what that means.
Yeah, of course. So I'll talk about the rates in general. George, the rates have become such a topic of interest, and everybody keeps asking what's going on with the rates, what's going on with the rates. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. The rates, the mortgage rates, did not go to 0%. Okay, what went to 0% was the money that banks borrow money amongst other banks and amongst federal governments and other institutions. So what did that do? That actually, gave the short-term loans, so credit cards, lines of credits, and the short-term loans, those helped lower the interest rate of those products. Now, that didn't affect the mortgage rates. What affected the mortgage rates really was the announcement of the government buying back mortgage-backed securities. So they're supposed to buy $700 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities. So what happens? That frees up a lot of lending institutions to go and purchase more mortgages. A lot of your major banks to go and purchase more mortgages. So that's what ultimately affected the rates to go lower. Now, what happened in the last 2 weeks? The last 2 weeks, the mortgage rates took a dip in a negative way, meaning all mortgage rates went skyrocket within last week and the week before. Okay. So what's happening now? These banks aren't making the same margin and the same interest rate, so they passed on the cost to the lenders. They passed on the cost to the branches. They passed on the cost all the way down. So what's happening is the rates actually got affected in the last 2 weeks, and they went skyrocket. So any borrower that you had that locked in the last 2 weeks actually had a higher rate than the third week ago or what it currently is now. So luckily yesterday, the market opened up better, and we do have better rates as of yesterday. As of today, we do have better rates than what they were last week and the week before.
Now, can you give, Javi, can you give an example of what was the rate hike? Or what, how high did it go? I mean, I've been hearing rumors of it being, over 4, 5, 6%. So can you give an example of what they creeped up to, or what was it that they went up to last week?
Yeah, of course. So the beginning of 2 weeks ago, I'd say was when it really happened, that they said that they were going to lower the rates, and when the announcement of the rates being dropped happened, and I was seeing FHAs at 2.75, 2.8. I was seeing your conventional mortgages at 3.2, 3.3. Then all of a sudden, last week, I was seeing FHA rates in the mid 4s, and I saw conventional even get up to a 5 and a 5+. So it was over a point difference or a percentage difference from last week to the prior week. Now we're back in the high 3s from what I'm looking at. We are seeing 3.6s. We are seeing 3.9s. I saw a couple 3.3s from some of the guys locking things in, costing about a point and a half. I saw a few 3.6s costing about a point. So I'm still seeing great rates this week. I'm hoping they'll get better. I don't know if anybody keeps up with the stock market, but you'll notice the stock market bounced back up a little bit today. So I'm hoping that's a good sign of the market stabilizing and everybody getting over this madness with the market dropping and it taking such a dump.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, Javi. Another thing that I've done, I've actually sent 5 refis, which is always a good thing too. Sent 5 refis to Javi and Carlito and actually Bruno. So if you guys need that, Javi, put your contact info if you could in the chat, and I appreciate that. So I wanted to get a lender's take, a title's take. We get the 1031 exchanges. One of the things Jennifer Abreu had asked me was about mindset and motivation, and man, it's just, there's nothing we can do aside from just work harder, stay home when you can, and not when you can, you should stay home, and get your exercise or whatnot in your house, or run outside and by yourself. That's what I've been doing. I think it's a healthy kind of, not a housing depression. Actually, let me bring Hector, who's Hector. What's your take on this?
What do you mean regarding what?
And I'll bring Guzman too. The take on the housing market, like right now, how housing going to affect affect us?
I think it's affecting us negatively at this point. It's affecting us in the sense that I can't have an open house. I've got people that want to go see properties, but now they're afraid because they expect a mini recession or even a depression. And so those words are not to scare anybody. That's just to inform everybody. If or when they happen, you can't look at that and say, oh my God, the sky is falling and we're done. This is over. Let me go, find another job. I think that's when you have to seize the opportunity and show your value to your customer, to your client. If they say, oh my God, I'm going to sell because I'm going to be underwater. I'll tell you a story. In 2000, I lost almost, I won't say the number, but I lost somewhere between $500 and $1 million in 2009. And between 2009 and 2011, it was a very dark time. It was very sad. I lost a bunch of money. I had done all this work. I had sued clients. I never saw a penny of it back. But a funny thing happened, right? I said, I'm going to go get my real estate license. And I've been doing this now for almost 8 years. And so you have to find the opportunity. You have to seize the opportunity once it comes and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, right? So my cabin, I have a cabin up in North Carolina on 4 acres. It's a nice little cabin, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I went to refi the cabin, and I only owed $250 at the time. And Wells Fargo says, well, you're upside down. It's only worth $120,000 right now. Okay. So what I tell people is either don't jump off or don't let go of the rope, right? I held out, and now that same cabin that Wells Fargo told me was worth 120 grand is now worth almost $500,000 again. Okay. So no matter how bad you think things are going to get, they will get better. And if you work hard, not only are they going to get better, they're going to get really, really good. So don't waver just because coronavirus is coming, or because, banks are lending, but people are afraid to go get that loan, or people are going to lose their jobs. Yes, people are going to lose their jobs. Yes, it may be somewhere between 10 and 20% that will be unemployed, but that's okay. You can't focus on that. You have to focus on the positives, find that silver lining, okay? And if you work hard, you can still make, my goal this year was to make $300,000, right? I wanted to close 12 million and make 300,000 in commissions. Of course, I see Robert there. What's up, man? But what I'm trying to say is don't let what's going on immediately affect you from now until 5 years down the line. Figure out a way. Talk to your clients. Call the FSBOs. I talked to a FSBO the other day, and I got him to sign a commission agreement. We're under contract. We're closing May 4th only because my client is really slow at packing her home, which is also sold. The lake house that I put on the market a week and a half ago, that's gone, and now she's buying. And it's just knock on the guy's door. He's a FSBO. Say, I have somebody that wants to buy it. I don't care about making 6%. Give me my 3%. I know that's what I'm going to work for anyway. And we're under contract right now. So you guys just find the opportunity and work really hard. Don't listen to the outside noise. If you listen to Peyton Manning or Pat Riley has a great book that I read 10 years ago. He doesn't listen to the outside noise. He doesn't listen to the commentators of the National Basketball Association. He doesn't listen to ESPN. He doesn't listen to Fox Sports Radio. He doesn't listen to anything. And in the meantime, we've got 3 championships, and we're probably going to get some more because he blocks out the outside noise. So I tell you guys the same thing. Take the information that you're given and that you're listening to, with a grain of salt. It's not always good for you to listen to what's going on outside. That's my 2 cents.
I love it, Hector. And I always like the other opinions. And I'm going to put Guzman on here because then I want to end that cap of it. Guzman, what's your thought?
I want to go back to what Javi was saying. I think this is a good time to really reach out to your clients, especially clients that may be in a position to refi their homes. Anybody that's been in the business over the last 3, 4, 5 years know and have closed the deal know that most of their clients are in a position to refi their home. They're probably in the threshold where they can, you know, take some money out or get a lower rate. So I think right now may be a good time, knowing that they're home, panicking about what's going on with the market. Good time for that. And staying informed and knowing what's going on. We're not in the same position. Banks are not in the same position that they were back in '08. You know, they have a lot of cash on hand. They have a lot of liquidity on hand. They're going to allow mortgage holders to maybe do a forbearance for 30, 60, 90, up to 120 days. The Senate from the Democratic side is talking about a whole year forbearance for some loans backed by FHA. So I think that information needs to be put out to the clients. The clients need to know that their realtor knows about this information. Calm them down and let them know that things are going to be, things are going to be okay on the other side. You know, especially those that may have lost their jobs. Those are the ones that you really want to get after and let them know that you're here to help. You're a helping hand, and that you have this information, and that maybe you can help them. A lot of them don't know this, and so I think, again, knowing what's going on, being informed, knowing about the market, and knowing, you know, the financial status of banks right now will really, really, really help as to, you know, helping your client out, reaching out to
Commissioner, let me add to that. I agree with you 100%, bud. First and foremost, make sure if anybody does do any forbearance, make sure they're not in the middle of buying another home, guys. All right, very important. That could affect them. That could affect them in the long run. And aside from, yeah, please, guys. And then aside from that, what Robert said, I don't know if you guys paid attention, but contact them not just for a refinance, but I think it's a great time to contact any of your past clients, period. And like I'm doing, like I'm just reaching out. I just pulled out a list of 20 or 30 people that I closed last year. And I just started calling them. And I was like, hey, look, I just want to know, is everything all right? Do you need anything? Are you okay? Do you have, you know, the resources that you need to survive through these tough times? And that opens up a good avenue of conversation, even asking them. And that might even string up a question, hey, you know what, actually, I might want to sell my house now that this is going on. Or, hey, look, you know what, I actually do want to refinance. Or, hey, look, you know what, I think it's a good time to downsize. Or I think it's a good time to upsize. I'm not comfortable in my home. So even calling somebody and just checking up on them is a great, great opportunity for you to stir up a conversation that could potentially get you some business.
I love it. And you said something right now. Jen, what did you just tell me you did yesterday for the first time? Wait, unmute yourself. Or I was hearing you perfect. I don't know, something you did.
No, can you hear me now?
What did you do yesterday that you called me and told me?
So I sat down and I went through all the transactions I've had for the last 6 years, and I created like an Excel spreadsheet that I'm going to be uploading into Total Brokerage. And I've basically just called everybody that I've done anything with, whether it's been a rental, a sale. I worked as a co-listing agent. It doesn't matter what I did. I just called everybody up, and I have 3 new buyers from that. So, I mean, it works.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Congratulations.
And I see Pablo around here. Pablo, chime in there with Total Brokerage. Where are you? Oh no, unmute. Wait. Pablo, unmute. You're the king right now, Total Brokerage.
Yeah.
Wait. No, wait. We still can't hear you. No, Pablo. Oh, he may be on the phone with a client. But no, so now I'll give you guys my outtake. I mean, not my outtake, my viewpoint of this situation. I give you an example. Zillow yesterday announced they're shutting off their iBuyer program for the next year, which is huge for us, right? What they were doing is offering a house that was worth $350. They were offering $280 or $250. And when you said, no, my house is worth more, they say, hold on, but okay, let me recommend you 2 or 3 listing agents to list your home. So they were cutting us out. They also reduced the cost of their leads for the next 30 to 60 days by 50%. Their stock has plummeted. I don't want nobody, there's people that lose their jobs. If you're not selling ads, there's people losing jobs. So don't think I'm insensitive to the people that work at Zillow. I would never do that. But us in the same market that they're trying to cut us out is a huge thing for us. And also like companies like WeWork and Compass just laid off 15% of their staff. What it shows is they can't run their business in these incredible losses. And what that means to us is more of a playing field for us. And I see Hector shaking his head over there. But,
absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to bring up the Compass thing because Compass came after me when I left Century 21 6 months ago. They came after me aggressive. They were very aggressive. Oh my God, we really want you, blah, 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 whatever. And as I did my research, and this is why I tell people you must research, they're very heavy into technology. And my fear was that something like this would put them in the position that they're in right now, you know? The other thing I'm going to add, and I'm going to add this, George, excuse me for interrupting.
No.
Guys, use the social media to your advantage. I mean, I put toilet paper memes, I put all these funny memes, and all of a sudden people are sending me messages. Hey, tell me about the real estate market. Hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think just use it to your advantage. I mean, you're sitting at home watching reruns or watching whatever you're watching on TV. Send a text message. Put up something on social media. If you follow me on Facebook, you'll see I'm posting stuff about my car. I'm posting stuff about, hey, I found eggs at Graziano's yesterday, 15 eggs for $3. And all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, really? Yeah, it was really cool. Oh, do you live by there? Yeah, I like Westchester. Yeah, guess what? There's a couple houses here for sale. And all of a sudden, like Jenny was saying, now you get into that conversation when you didn't even initiate it that way, okay?
Yeah, and where I was gonna get with it, and thanks for chiming in, Hector. You've been very awesome with this Zoom, and it always helps have other perspectives. So right now, we are in such a position that the weaker people, the people are not hustling. Or if you guys are on this Zoom right now, to be honest, at 12 o'clock in the day, where you could have been watching The Tiger King on Netflix, which is a show I was watching yesterday, it was actually good. The Tiger King. Have you guys seen it? It's really good. It's like an Aaron Hernandez thing. But anyways, you're here because you guys are a little bit ahead of the curve and you're trying to make as much of this situation as you possibly can. And if you do it right now is where you could buy land, the land grab of the people's attention, the people that are not going to be able to stick around for the next 30, 60 days. If you're seeing people, and it sucks to hear that they haven't got a paycheck in 2 weeks and now they're talking about not being able to pay the rent, their car, they're living month to month. It's horrible. Most of us hopefully are not in that position. If now, start doing sponsored posts on Instagram. The more land you pick up now, when it gets back to normal, you're that much more known. The other people are scrambling. What am I going to do? Right now, you should be reading every single book you could get your hand on, making a post every single day, a story every day, DMing every single person. So when the gates open, you're ahead of everybody. The agent that was kind of so there, that sells Monad, that does hair, that does this, they're not doing that right now because they're looking to kind of see what they're going to do. We know what we're going to do. We're good at it. We share so much knowledge. I have Jerry in this thing that I've shared these, like a Facebook marketplace, the little stupid things that we do that nobody else does. We're going to destroy everybody else in the sense of not everybody's going to be successful in this business, but we're going to destroy the competition that we have of getting that next listing. So if the people that were potentially going to get your next listing can't get it, that means you get it. So grab as much land as you possibly can. And I mean land about public attention, sponsored posts, DM, use text to group, use everything you could possibly get your hands on. So that way you're the king of it or the queen. So read, like right now, if you invest, like right now, for example, Carnival, and I'm not giving you stock advice, it's at $10. It's normally trending at $50. If you could invest into these things now and you have excess money, invest in it. And that's going to give you staying power in the long run. So Zillow coming out of the market and Zillow not being able to advertise, their stock price is almost 70%, 80% less. That means they're not going to be able to get as much money into their system to outbeat you on SEO before. Now, some of us invest into Zillow. Right now, we're getting it at a steal. Now I'm going to talk to them and be like, hey, what are you going to give me this rate at? I'm not going to pay this anymore so I could get more leads for less money. That's a huge thing. Let me see. Guys, I wanted to keep this an hour. If there's any questions, please ask in the chat. But I think we've ended it on a great high note. Knowledge, update your CRMs. Like what Jennifer Abreu said, use this time. Look, I cleaned my guns that I hadn't cleaned in a while. I loaded guns that I hadn't done in a while. It's fun. I'm just telling myself. I updated my CRMs as well. I'm working with our designer, working on the emails and the new open house things. I've cleaned, like I've color coordinated my closet. I don't know, like I'm sure Jennifer Abreu has people that do that for her, but I color coordinate my closet. So when we're ready to work, I know where everything is at. Just take care of things that you've been putting aside. read books. I'm actually reading physical hardcover books that I've been having sitting there that I don't have on Audible. I've been reading those. I've been setting goal plans. How am I gonna do it? And what Hector was saying, if you're not posting every single day, you're doing something. You're home already. There's no excuse. So guys, rock and roll. On Friday we're gonna have an orientation, the new agent orientation on this. And then next week, I'm going to try to get Bridgette, and I'm going to get more guest speakers. I'm actually going to get a class. I'm more likely going to get a trainer for short sales. So an opportunity that may happen is a short sale boom. And we take care of short sales and you invest into it. So guys, lock and load. Love you all. Let's get to work.